So, when making the decision, you said that you at once did a deal with Warner and then decided to go independent. What led you to go from being on with Warner, a major label, correct? And what kind of drove you to go independent, and do you feel that was the right choice?
Well, it was absolutely the right choice. That the problem with being distributed through Warner Brothers was, they got the bulk of the income from the records, and the promotion and marketing was done by them. And so our artists were kind of in a queue behind their artists. And so we had to persuade their promotion team to work on our records. We had to persuade them that our records were good enough for them. And by this time in the UK, we were a completely independent company with our own promotion team, and we enjoyed the fact that we didn't have to persuade anybody to work on our records, because they worked for us and that was their job. And we wanted to have the same situation in America. And we had, our sales were good enough that we had enough volume to be an independent company. And so we, as I say, we took the record company back. I hired a guy who was an expert in distribution. And in those days, in the mid-70s, there was an active independent distributor chain, which I don't think really exists anymore. So we had, I think, 16 different distributors around America in all the major centers. So we would manufacture and ship the record to them, and they'd sell them.
So when you refer to the distributor, can you give us an example of who a distributor company might be, or is it kind of just like an entity that does like everything? I guess you can explain
well, a distributor will be a regional distributor, maybe say like just for Texas. It'll be a company in Texas, and we will manufacture our records and ship them to them into their warehouse, and they will be responsible for getting the records into the stores, into the record stores in Texas. Now this is becoming an old-fashioned concept because record stores are going out of business. But at the time, there were no such thing as downloads, so everything was, you were selling a physical property. And those distributors, at the time, there were a number of quite strong independent labels, Chrysalis, A&M, Arista, one or two others, Motown probably, that there was enough volume going through the distributor to give them a good business. And they were responsible then for getting the records into the stores throughout the region and getting paid and paying us.
So with Chrysalis, is that how you say it? Chrysalis? Chrysalis. Now, I know you started out doing kind of booking and whatnot, and then were there other, how did Chrysalis develop, I guess? I know it's a record label, but did you continue doing the management? Did you continue doing booking under that name? Did you produce, or what kind of became your...
Well, we began as a booking agency and then began to manage, and then as a service to really the artists that we managed, we developed these other functions. As a record company and a music publishing company. We had a concert promotion company, and we were, I guess, sort of the original 360 company, which is now a sort of popular thing in the American record industry. But then, really, we then gravitated towards records and publishing.
So, take Blondie, for example. Were you both Blondie's publisher and was she on your record label? Can you maybe explain the difference between publisher and more so just having an artist on your record label?
Well, they're two completely different businesses. A record company sells records, and a publisher is essentially an agent for a songwriter and represents songs. And they're sort of kind of can be sister businesses. So we've had record company and publishing company, and when we sign someone to a record company, in most cases we'd also sign them to a music publishing company.
And when you're signing an artist, for example, say Keep Blondie, for example, how long would their usual kind of agreement work with you guys, as far as, would they be signed? Like, how long would the term of the agreement be? I guess that's what I'm interested in.
In Blondie's case, I really can't remember, but I mean, a typical record contract you would make with an artist for 2 albums, and then options for maybe another 4.
So and getting into like kind of the record contract, publishing contract kind of side, did you have to learn how to write those things on your own? Did you work with attorneys throughout your career, or where did the kind of the paperwork come in?
Well, attorneys in the music industry have a really bad reputation. Attorneys have a bad reputation generally. I've always found lawyers to be incredibly helpful. And I've certainly, in my time over at Loyola, recommended the young entrepreneurs there to try to make early relationships with a reliable accountant and a reliable lawyer, because it's so essential. I mean, you're in a creative business, and you're motivated by the music and by the artists that you love, and it's so easy to get sort of swept away with the creativity and forget that you need to protect your interests and you need to protect your artist's interests. And I think it's very important to understand that the legal and financial parameters that you need to work within as a business. And I've always found that a good place to find that information is with an experienced entertainment industry lawyer.
So did you have to use one kind of like, you were starting out your business pretty early on in your career, correct? As like right when you were getting out of university, you said. And then how long outside of university was it that you formed your record company?
5 years.
So at the time that you kind of were getting more professional, did you have kind of the finances and like the ability to hire an attorney? Was that kind of the practice back then? I'm just thinking on the side of like young entrepreneurs today who are like young artists today who sometimes think that they can't afford to have attorneys to help them out, and who often just kind of go blindly into the industry.
Well,
that kind of how
in our case, we grew our business organically, so we never had financial issues. What I recommended to the kids over in Loyola is that they should try to, as they start out, they might be able to find lawyers who'll give them some help, do pro bono work for them to help them out, to help establish maybe a long-term relationship. But I just think it's terribly important. I've told them it's terribly important that they understand the legal parameters that they need to work with.
Do you feel that the kind of saying with the entertainment industry is it's not what you know, it's who you know? Do you think that applies?
Well, for me, as far as the music industry is concerned, the most important thing is the music and the artist. And the quality of the music and the quality of the artist are the most important thing. And one of the things I observe today is a lot of the young artists think that the most important thing are your connections. And that I get approached all the time with people saying, can you help me get to the next level? Make those important introductions to me that will help me get to the next level. And my response is always to them, why is it that you think that in most businesses, in all businesses, it would be generally accepted if you want to progress and be more successful, then you have to get better at what you do. But somehow people think that in the music industry, the way to progress is to have connections. And it just isn't the case. If you want to be successful in the music business, the most important things are outstanding talent and extremely hard work. And that's no different from any other business.
Yes, please.
As far as image goes, as an audience, we tend to connect with an image of an artist. That's their trademark, who they are, that's their product, and acting as well, that we are our product. So would you say that also has an effect as to the marketability of your client, how you can actually get your client out there as soon as they have that look, as soon as they have that trademark look, that we can automatically, like, that's Billy Idol, look at his hair, So is that important? I mean, do you sit down with somebody and say, we need to look at your image, we need to fix this, and then we're going to start marketing you out? How important is that?
The first and most important thing is the art. It's the music, and the quality of the music, and the quality of the artist. And my role, always as a manager or as a record company, is to maximize the ability of the artist to achieve the potential, the maximum potential, the maximum of their potential. The ultimate goal is to achieve the maximum potential for them, and so part of that is marketing, and part of marketing is helping them achieve an image. But the quality of the music has to come first.
Right.
In buying and selling publishing catalogs, I understand the basics of taking the average annual net income and multiplying it anywhere between 8 and 18. But there's a lot of intangibles in valuing a publishing catalog. I was wondering if you can just explain the process of selling your catalog or buying your catalog.
I'm not sure that I can. You probably need to speak to a publishing expert to find that out. And I think it's pretty much done on multiples these days. These days it's a big business, and it's getting smaller. The publishing catalogs are getting into fewer and fewer hands. In fact, my old catalog, the Chrysalis catalog, was just sold to B&G, and I think that's done basically on multiples by accountants. I'm not sure that they're applying too much creative judgment, and evaluating this. In an ideal world, you think they would evaluate the songwriters and the quality, but I don't think they do that. I think it's all done on numbers.
Was the sale of your catalog at B&G, was that in the public domain? Would people know about that, like a dollar figure to?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
No, I left Chrysalis a long time ago, so my ex-partner just sold it. I'm thinking somewhere in the 1900 million, something like that.
So when did you we just heard how you started and then developed into the 80s, I think. And how did you make your way out of the music business, or from that time of the mid 1980s to now? How did things go for you, and as far as Chrysalis went, Chrysalis.
Well, in the mid 80s, my partner and I, after being together for 17 years, we kind of fell out, which was very unfortunate, and we ended up separating, which was not a good thing for either of us. And it was a mistake, in my view. And you know, because the greatest, I think the best thing about Chrysalis was our partnership was that we came at things from a completely different point of view. I was very ambitious, and he was very conservative, and we always managed to compromise somewhere in the middle, which was the right place to be. But with success and money comes arrogance, and we each became less and less willing to compromise. So we ended up just arguing a lot, and eventually realized this wasn't good for us, it wasn't good for the business. And unfortunately, we lacked somebody, we lacked a really strong person in our life to come along and bang our heads together and tell us we were idiots. And we had to, get real, grow up, and sort it out, which is what we